Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here today. It's my first time in Helsinki, and I'm going to talk about innovative architecture. And I want to share with you 7 of our projects. They're all pretty different and diverse, but the beautiful thing is that they all harness technology as a tool to unleash creativity. And we weave together design, technology, and services into seamless ecosystems and solutions. So the first project I'm going to share with you is the underwater domes of Istanbul. When we look at Istanbul, it is a city with 15 million residents gridlocked during daily rush hour. And that doesn't happen once in a while, it happens every day. 80% of traffic volume is created by private cars carrying 1 passenger, and you see here a lonesome cyclist amongst the cars. When we look at the lack of connectivity across the Bosporus, it becomes pretty clear that there are not enough connections. There are a couple of bridges, and now an underground tunnel. And what we're proposing here is another tunnel to link basically the infrastructure together between Kabatas and Üksüdağ. But what we're proposing here is not another road connection, it's basically a pedestrian cycle tunnel to promote alternative modes in this fantastic city. It's connecting 2 major transport hubs, as you can see here on the diagram, with a 2-kilometer bored tunnel. It's basically creating this kind of short circuit between both traffic systems. But how do we deal with the peak hour demand and get really people to walk underground in a tunnel? We all know tunnels are normally utilitarian structures and we don't really want to go inside them. Well, first of all, we thought we should introduce a high-speed travelator. And there's fantastic new technology out on the market. And you can see here a high-speed travelator on the top compared with 2 conventional ones. You know, it helps us to reduce the transit time by 2/3. And it increases the capacity. We can bring more people quicker through the tunnel. So it's a 10-minute basically journey through the tunnel. And you can see here how the pallet driving system is allowing us to smoothly get on and off this high-speed travelator. I think a fantastic invention. The second thing is we've got to create a space which is different to a normal kind of tunnel. And this photo shows you how it looks like once you complete the tunnel, you put the lining on. And we thought, well, how can we make this kind of tunnel more interesting? And we thought, well, when you think about Istanbul, it's all about the domes. We have these domes on both sides, European and the Asian side. And we thought, why not just combine this kind of feeling of these domes with the underwater tunnel and turn this whole thing into the underwater domes of Istanbul? And this is basically by far not a kind of a conventional tunnel structure. It's something which is very pleasant to walk through. It's almost a kind of a sequence of tunnels, of domes, which is very pleasant to look into. And when you look at the section, we have basically an upper and a lower deck. On the lower deck, we put autonomous vehicles to serve basically elderly people and people with disabilities, and we also have the cycle track there. On the upper level, you can see how we are integrating the high-speed travelator, a walkway next to it, and dome-shaped cladding system. It's a tunnel as filled with light and sunshine. So the idea is to use technology to create this kind of feeling of continuity. So when you're above ground during daylight, we want to mimic this and bring this daylight basically underground to make this kind of experience a continuous journey. And when we get to the halfway point between basically European side and the Asian side, we thought we've got to have a bit of a tourist moment, something where we can celebrate basically this transition and create a kind of a compelling exhibition space with video projection. And this helps us to turn this piece of infrastructure also into a destination itself, another wonderful tourist attraction in Istanbul. But how do we access this tunnel? Well, when you basically do a tunnel and you start boring, you've got to have a launch shaft to let basically the boring machine in the ground and then do its work. And we thought, why don't we just reuse this shaft to bring daylight basically deep down into the underground and then put a dome structure on top as a compelling canopy, which then basically through the oculus brings the light down. And we're using express lifts to get people up and down, and then connecting the cycle lanes and the autonomous vehicles back into the infrastructure of the urban fabric. Well, it's a tunnel which fosters environmental friendly and healthy mobility, and I think it's an important message here that when we think about tunnels, let's not just think about road tunnels, let's think about other ways of using tunnels and making tunnels more fun and better places actually to enjoy. The second project I'm going to share with you is a project called Smart Canopy. It's a project we developed on the back of the Expo 2020 Dubai. We know they're very busy at the minute. They're going to open their gates pretty soon. And they asked us to look at the Expo concourse. You can see here a photo of a typical concourse, very crowded. You've got to move basically people around in the Expo area. And they asked us to look at a modular shade canopy with a zero-emission mobility system. That was a challenge for us. And it's important, in particular in desert environments like in Dubai, that you provide shade. Well, we first looked at the modular canopy and we thought, why don't we take inspiration from nature? We know cells are the building blocks of our life, and connected, they do wonderful things. We know cells can capture energy from the sunlight. We know that they can, help us breathe because they're surrounded with semi-permeable membranes. And that basically inspired us to develop a prototype of a roof cell with a flap. And you can see that the flap is an ETFE cushion, which references the membrane, and also has imprinted organic PVs. And there's a fantastic new technology in the market now that makes it almost invisible or could be printed on membrane. And then in connection, it creates a modular smart canopy solution which can moderate the climate underneath. Well, but how could we integrate then a zero-emission transport system amongst all these people? Well, we thought the future of mobility is in the sky. A lot of us believe in that. And we came up with the idea of urban air mobility. Basically, push up the mobility underneath the canopy and free up 40% more capacity on the concourse, and also basically avoid the cross-flow problems you normally have shown on the left side with a conventional concourse solution. Well, area cable cars obviously been used before a lot in expos, and they are more and more popular now in urban environments. This is an example from South America. They're zero-emission mobility systems, very easy to install, and fantastic when you look at the efficiencies of them. Well, the second thing we then come up with, we found an invention from Jeffrey Bennett, is a human-appropriate monorail, and this is a phenomenon, and I want to share this with you now. You can see the prototype. Getting prepared now for a ride. It's getting some final instructions, how to change gears and use pedals. Now we're closing the door. There we go. So when we put this all together under the canopy, you can see here how we organize it. You have the Sky Express of the cable car on the top, on the sides the smart canopy, the cycle track, and then we can basically moderate the climate condition, release hot air build-up, and let the sun through depending on the environmental conditions. And this is basically creating a kind of a system towards a sustainable zero-emission society. And I hope we get soon an opportunity to scale this up to a city level, and I think that will be fantastic to see that happening. The next project is EV filling station. Electric cars hit record sales in the UK, and I hope here soon as well. 1 every 13 minutes gets registered in the UK. And this is very, very important, in particular in a city like London, where we have huge problems with air pollution. In particular now in the winter months, where we have this constant layer of clouds over the city, we have a huge problem, smog. So we got approached by a client to look into these rapid charging points. And when you look at a sample here, they're very utilitarian and pragmatic, and you can see here kind of a standard shed put on top of them to protect them. And they asked us to look at something more inspiring. And we thought, why not design a canopy which expresses the spirit of green energy, and you can see it a reference to a leaf, and how we're encapsulating this charging point and putting PV cells on top, because we believe we should express this also in the design. And we turned this basically into urban furnitures, which can be implemented in different sizes in existing conditions, like here the parking spot. But it could also, in its constellation, form drive-through stations, like urban sculptures of follies, very appealing. And we're using, obviously, smartphone apps to make this whole thing work. In the past, it was really, really frustrating for someone who had an electric vehicle to find a charging point, because most people abuse the charging points for free parking. Nowadays, we can use technology, and we've seen in the presentations early on, to monitor who actually gets to the spot. We can reserve the spot when we get there. It's ready for us to charge our vehicle and then move on. And I think this is all about basically making electric vehicle usage much more convenient and fun and more easier. And our client is in particular interested here to look at also electric vehicle cafes and clubs to basically have a bit of a spark and a feeling of community here to increase the uptake. The next project, slightly different, Stonehenge Futures. Some of you guys probably have seen it before, been there, or heard at least about this monument. It's a World Heritage Site, but with a road built in the golden age of motoring. And you can see on the horizon that there is a road basically going through the middle of the World Heritage Site. It's also been called the Highway to the Sun, the A303, because a lot of Londoners on their way to the beach basically pass by this beautiful landmark. But it's a notorious traffic black spot, huge problems. On the approach to Stonehenge, you have 2 to 3 kilometers stop and go, and there are some pretty bad accidents happening daily. So Highways for England, very concerned about safety and security, and all the heritage stakeholders wanted to implement here a tunnel, and we looked into that. They want to bring back basically this time of Stonehenge to make this landscape complete again, to basically experience Stonehenge as it used to be. But what happens basically is once you're in the tunnel, you will not see anymore your landmark on the way to the beach. So there's been a lot of protest. It's a very emotional thing. It's highly debated in the media, and you can see here an article with the heading, "Spare Stonehenge from this tunnel vision." So a lot of people are not really happy about that. So we're thinking deeply and a lot about how can we deal with this contradiction. And we thought, well, let's use technology. We heard a lot about augmented reality, and we believe we can bring this experience back into the car. Probably not for the driver yet. We don't have the autonomous vehicles yet on the roads. But we can bring it back in a form of a sense of play and exploration and learning, and we can monitor basically the car on its way through the tunnel. And there is so much more in the evolution at the minute, like the smart car windows from Toyota and CID and other providers. And you can see how this whole thing becomes very interactive, and I believe in a couple of years, when the tunnel will be completed, we will be at a point that we can bring back this experience from driving above ground inside the tunnel with the help of technology. And we can provide additional information through augmentation. Well, when we presented this to the stakeholders, in particular our colleagues from English Heritage, they got excited. They thought this is fantastic. This new technology is actually allowing us to get rid of all the signage. And we don't need any direction path anymore. We can freely roam basically in this area, and this is good from an archaeological point of view as well, because when you have directional path, there is probably too much of impact on the layers of archaeological value underneath the earth. And well, this is where we got to. It's a free roaming and new discovery, and technology brings back authentic kind of experience of the monument. The next project is again in a desert environment. It's called Oxygen Park. And this is a project we started in 2007. It's a very interesting one. That's why I put it in the presentation. And we met Her Highness Sheikh Moza, our client, the chairperson of Qatar Foundation, in 2007. And she basically asked us to create an oxygen park as a new green lung for her campus. And you can see in a photograph from 2007, there was no green. There was a campus basically just evolving on a desert ground. But she gave us a challenge. She didn't want us to just do another Hyde Park or another park from somewhere else. She wanted an outdoor activity space with a local authenticity. She wanted something which is reflecting the DNA of her country. And you can see us here basically on a desert safari. So we spent really a week out there in the desert. And what a surprise, oxygen gives life in the desert. We found a camel and a tree. But also oxygen gives fantastic form. In particular in the southern part of the country, basically towards the Saudi Arabian border, there is a lot of rolling land formation happening through the wind. And this is absolutely phenomenal and fantastic. And we thought, let's use this kind of principle and apply to the space making of this park setting. And you can see here in the images basically how we're forming this park and how we're maximizing the cooling effect from these prevailing winds. And at the time, the computer technology was not that advanced, so we really pushed the limits here using CFD modeling, ground plane modeling, to optimize basically the shape of the park, embed programs, but also then maximize the cooling effects. And that's how the park is now establishing. It's a drone shot recently taken. You can see here that we integrated there an embedded shade structures, scent gardens, play areas, and a lot of active recreation spaces. We're looping running tracks, hills, sand pitches for volleyball, and a covered walkway. And we also have here an equestrian track, because they are the Sheikh stables and the riding academy in the adjacency, and wanted to bring them into the park. But a key feature is a covered walkway structure. And that is, solely inspired by this wind-eroded rock formation we found in the desert. We were so moved by them when we saw them. We thought we need to bring this kind of feeling of these kind of wind-eroded rocks into this park. And you can see here the shaded running track, how we have a tunnel section there with refreshing water walls. And you can see here an athlete from Ethiopia who is doing some exercise before, a big tournament. And the magic unfolds in the evening. We put a lot of technology in the park, a lot of lighting to basically create a huge magic moment here. And it's a pleasant place during the hot summer months. In particular, in desert environments, in the summer, you tend to use the evenings for outdoor activities. And you can use this place for cardio workout and cool down. And we also have 4 refreshing folly spheres here with relaxing soundscapes. In particular, after some real, physical exercise, you can socialize there, relax, recharge energy, and go back on the track. And huge uptake, some, snapshots from Instagram, a lot of initiatives here. You can see running groups, you can see boot camps and celebrations happening in the park. It's fantastic. It's really creating a sense of community, and this is something which is very important for those countries because normally everything happens in hotel lobbies or inside of enclosed spaces. And it's definitely an antidote to an indoor gym. It's reconnecting us with nature, which I think is very important because technology quite often actually alienates us from nature. And I want to show you almost coming to the end of the presentation. There are 2 more to go. Miami Wave, a project I included here because I think it's so relevant to so many cities where infrastructure are impacting on the urban fabric. Miami is known as a dream destination, but when you look at this photograph, it's far from being a dream destination. We have a problem here. The I-395, when it was constructed, cut basically the urban fabric into 2 parts. And you can see here that all of the development happened basically along the coast further away from the infrastructure. So downtown actually lost its heart. And you can see it's damaged the beauty of this magnificent city. It's derelict spaces and no one is using that space. So we thought in our project, we need to basically bring back this activity. We got to heal basically this wound in the urban fabric by reactivating the ground plane. It's basically doing the opposite from what you've seen. Rather than fencing the area, we put basically spaces underneath for activity, introducing here a 1-mile-long walkway, reconnecting the areas to the bay, or basically giving here activity spaces for sports to basically have the community reconquer the space and control the space, make it a safe space. When we look at the culture district, it's very much separated by the infrastructure. You can see it's just used as a parking spot at the minute. And we came up with the idea to, take away the spatial barrier by introducing a signature bridge over a plaza. Normally, we put them over rivers. And that actually helps us to lift the deck up and have a kind of a continuous plaza underneath. And we're also creating a kind of an icon basically like a crescent ocean wave, which brings some gravity to downtown and makes people aware that there is downtown. And it enables this kind of fantastic plaza underneath. And in tropical environments, it's good to have some shade provided from a structure. And at nighttime, with the lighting again and the help of animation and technology, we turn this into a kind of a very animated light canopy. And you can see the outdoor performance which can happen basically there in the future. The idea here is also to link basically a lighting system to a weather system, to turn basically this bridge into a barometer, to show basically the atmosphere and echo it in the lighting scene, like the rainbow after the storm, or to echo basically the sunset we all love in Miami so much through the night sky. So it's about combining infrastructure with technology and poetry to rebuild downtown sense of identity. And I hope that similar projects will happen soon in other cities where we have the issues of infrastructure just being treated as basically unsafe places to go to and utilitarian structures. Infrastructure can be so much more. At the end, I want to share with you Sky Park, and it's a fun project. It's all about fun. We know since the success of the London Eye, everyone wants to have a wheel. Everyone wants to have this Ferris wheel and needs to be taller. Everyone wants a taller one. So I got approached by a ropeway supplier in Austria, and they said to us, well, we have somehow a new technology and a patent. Could you have a look into this? And that enables actually to create Ferris wheel with more height, because they come up with the idea to pull basically the cabins on a rope around a mast and a horizontal cross member, rather than basically rotating the whole weight of the wheel around an axis. And we thought, well, but just doing a kind of an alternative, a Ferris wheel a bit taller might not be enough. So let's add a couple of other things we all like in cities, like, for example, the viewing tower, the sky bar, the skywalk, or even the fun pier when we have a water destination. And here's Sky Park. Here for Abu Dhabi, which we recently presented to the Executive Council. The elements combined together. The symbiotic It's a new symbol of happiness and civic pride, and I think this is a very important point. When we think about new technology and use new technology, it's very important that we use new technology in a very positive way to make our cities more fun and to basically enable us to have better lives. Thank you very much.